You wake up on a Thursday in Monaco, and the paddock is already buzzing before you've had coffee. Your motorhome sits 3 stories tall, glass and carbon fiber, parked in a row worth more than most city blocks. Your name is on the pit wall. Your drivers walk past a wall of cameras just to reach your garage. 20 engineers surround a car that took 18 months and a wind tunnel the size of an aircraft hangar to design, and every rivet on it belongs to you. You watch practice from a glass box above the grid, champagne on ice, 100,000 people in the grandstands, hundreds of millions more watching at home in 180 countries. Your car screams past at 200 miles an hour, and for 3 seconds, the whole world's attention is pointed at the logo on your nose cone. This is the most watched, most glamorous, most expensive traveling circus on the planet, and you own a piece of it. And the naive theory in your head is simple. With an audience like this, with sponsors lining up, with a brand this global, the money just comes in. Red Bull did it. Ferrari's been doing it since before your grandfather was born. You buy the team, you slap your logo on the car, and the checks write themselves. That is the dream, and it's not entirely wrong. The problem is what happens between the dream and the invoice. Here's the real conflict. What it costs to buy your way into this sport, what it costs to survive a single season, and what happens the day your engine supplier is late by one bolt. Because a Formula One team doesn't sell speed. It sells attention, rented out by the second to the highest bidder. Unpack that for a moment. Every logo on that car, every second of camera time, every grid position has a price tag attached to it that has almost nothing to do with how fast the car actually goes. You'll see exactly what that means when we get to where the real money in this sport comes from. So how do you actually get in? There is no showroom for this. You either buy an existing team outright, buy into one as a minority partner, or you pay Formula One itself for the right to build one from scratch. And the latter here is one of the steepest in all of sports. At the bottom, you can buy a small, independent midfield or lower team. Think along the lines of what Doralton Capital paid for Williams Racing back in 2020, a storied but struggling outfit for somewhere in the range of $200 million. That gets you the factory, the history, the entry slot, and a car that finishes near the back. Step up and buying into a genuinely competitive midfield team with modern facilities and a real technical staff will run you closer to $500 million. Step up again, and you're in INEOS territory. The chemical conglomerate paid roughly $1.2 billion just for a one-third stake in Mercedes' Formula One team in 2022. Do the math on that, and the whole operation is valued north of $3.5 billion. For one team in one racing series that doesn't even own the tracks it races on. And if none of that is available and you want to build a brand new team from nothing, Formula One will charge you an anti-dilution fee of $200 million just for the privilege of being allowed to enter, before you've bought a single carbon fiber panel. $1.2 billion for a third of a team means the full team is worth more than most NBA franchises. And this is a sport where the cars only last one season before they're obsolete. So what does owning this actually get you back? If you're near the front, prize money and sponsorship can genuinely pay you back. Ferrari and Mercedes both pull in well over $100 million a year in prize money alone before a single sponsorship deal is signed. But if you're a midfield or backmarker team, be honest with yourself. This is not a cash flow investment. It's a status and leverage play. Owning a Formula One team gets you a seat at the most exclusive table in global sport. Direct lines to heads of state and Fortune 500 CEOs who show up in your garage, and a brand visibility machine no billboard could ever match. That's what it can give you. Here's what it takes from you every single day just to keep it running. Before a single sponsor logo sells, and before a single point is scored, your team is burning roughly $500,000 a day. That breaks down fast. Under the current cost cap, you're allowed to spend up to $135 million a year on car performance. That's your factory, your engineers, your wind tunnel time, your parts. And that number alone is nearly $370,000 a day, every day, cap season or not. On top of that, sits everything the cap doesn't cover. Driver salaries that can run into the tens of millions for a top name, marketing, hospitality, and the small army of senior executives the cap rules specifically exempt. Add it up, and you're looking at another $130,000 a day minimum. It doesn't matter if you finish on the podium or if your car retires on lap 1 with a blown engine. You still pay for every single hour of that. And here's the trapdoor that ruins amateur owners. The cost cap doesn't actually cap your costs. It caps your on-track spending, but you still have to compete against teams who exploit every legal exemption in that rulebook, from capital expenditure loopholes to how they classify a power unit cost versus a chassis cost. Go even a single dollar over the cap and the penalties are brutal. Red Bull was fined over $7 million and stripped of wind tunnel time in 2021 for overspending by less than 2%. That rule exists to protect the smaller teams from being outspent into oblivion by billionaire owners, which means it's the rich teams' lawyers, not their engineers, who often decide who wins the championship. Now remember the naive theory from the top of this video, that the money just comes in because of who's watching. Here's what actually pays the bills. It isn't ticket sales, and it isn't merchandise. It's a prize money structure Formula One itself controls, split into two pots, half divided based purely on where you finished in last year's championship, and half divided equally regardless of position, plus a set of legacy bonus payments paid only to a handful of historic teams like Ferrari, worth tens of millions of dollars a year, that no new team can ever qualify for no matter how well they perform. On top of that sits the real engine, sponsorship and title naming rights, sold not on lap times but on camera seconds and social reach. The exact same model an airline uses to sell you a mile you'll never actually redeem for a seat. And no competitor can copy this engine because Formula One itself controls the broadcast deal, the calendar, and who gets a franchise slot at all. There are only 10 spots on the entire grid, and the incumbents get to vote on whether an 11th is ever allowed to exist. In 2018, Force India found out what happens when that revenue engine dries up mid-season. The team's principal owner was tangled in fraud allegations back in India, sponsors pulled out, and administrators were called in with the team still mid-championship. For a terrifying few days, there was real fear the cars would be seized by creditors before the next race, and reports at the time described the team's transporters and equipment being rushed out of the paddock to avoid impoundment. 400 jobs hung by a thread. It was saved only at the 11th hour, when a consortium led by billionaire Lawrence Stroll bought the team out of administration for roughly £90 million, a fraction of what it would have cost to build the same operation from scratch, and only because the alternative was total liquidation days before a race weekend. Now walk the actual math with me. In a good year, a solid midfield team finishes around 6th in the championship, pulling in roughly $90 million in prize money and another $60 million in sponsorship. Call it $150 million in revenue. Set that against your real yearly cost of around $185 million, and you're still running an operating loss of $35 million a year, even in the good version of the story. Now change one variable. You have a bad development year, slip from 6th to 9th in the standings. Prize money is brutally weighted toward the top, so it collapses to $60 million. Sponsors who pay for visibility see less of you on camera and cut their spend to $40 million. Your revenue falls to $100 million, while your costs barely move, because most of them are fixed whether you finish 6th or last. Your loss balloons to $85 million. The difference between those two seasons isn't a rounding error. It's a $50 million swing on the exact same team, the exact same factory, the exact same people, just 3 grid positions apart. You are not buying a race car. You are buying a 3-second advertisement that airs in 180 countries every other Sunday, and paying $500 million and up for the privilege of running it at a loss most years, on the bet that one day the checks from the front of the grid outweigh everything it costs to stay on it.